We had our eyes closed. We thought, oh, this is something happening in Wuhan. It's so far away, it's not going to impact us. So the coronavirus has been something that has been coming to us pretty much every year. So the corona is a category of viruses. But if you actually look at it, a doctor's life or your ability to practice medicine requires you to be an entrepreneur in every sense of the word. Indians are probably the most phenomenally resourceful people. Within 1 year, they had raised $1 million. The key attribute of an entrepreneur is to be an opportunity miner. The mindset is the same, whether you're an entrepreneur or an intrapreneur. Essentially, you're looking to solve problems.
For the future generation, we are going to do a big deal of favor.
I have traveled to more than 20 countries across 4 continents in the world.
Hello everybody, welcome to Entrepreneurship Simplified, and this show is going to introduce you to those brilliant ideas and the biggest leaders who will help you simplify success through their real life situations, challenges, failures and successes, so that you don't need to repeat the same mistakes. Rather focus on your growth to realize your dream of becoming a successful person. And this show is being done in association with Young Indians. Young Indians is a movement for Indian youth to converge, lead, co-create and influence India's future. YI is playing a proactive role in India's development process. If you want to take part of the India's growth and be successful, YI is a place to be. Bear in mind, this entire show has no script. Everything you hear in the show is heart-to-heart and real-life experiences. And today's guest is a leader from healthcare industry, President Medical Administration, Quality and Education in Sankara Eye Foundation, which is among the largest structured community eye care hospital network in India, which provided over 2.3 million free eye surgeries to underprivileged Indians. He has done general management from INSEAD, France, and strategic management from Harvard Business School. He has several publications on childhood blindness, autism, and vision, and he has won numerous awards from All Indian Ophthalmological Society Award, Eye Hero from International Agency for the Prevention of Blindness, Mother Teresa Social Leadership Scholarship. He's also part of the national management team of Young Indians and led the Indian delegation for India-Israel Young Leaders Forum in 2019. Help me to welcome Dr. Kaushik Murali. Hi Kaushik, how are you doing?
Wonderfully well, Rajesh. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. I think what I pride more is the two organizations that you mentioned that I'm a part of, the Sankara Eye Foundation as a part of my day job, and Young Indians, where we believe that we are contributing back to a better India.
Absolutely. And I want to say a big thank you for taking time and to, sharing your experience to be part of the show. And, just to start with, I just want to ask, right, being a doctor is absolutely a different journey compared to being an, any other field. If they want to become some top leader or part of the management or an entrepreneur, what is the kind of journey that you think, doctors should expect if they really want to pursue their journey of entrepreneurship or intrapreneurship?
Being a doctor is a decision that you have to come up with very early in life. So I'm going to split it into 2 parts. The first part about how do you decide to become a doctor, and second, how do you retain the entrepreneurial zeal after becoming a doctor. So becoming a doctor is something that you need to pick up very early. The reason I say that is most professions today, you end up specializing and super specializing. Especially if you want to become a doctor, today it is not just enough for you to complete your MBBS degree, which is a 5.5-year course. You need to specialize further, figure out what you want to specialize in, and you subsequently also need to probably super specialize in. For example, I needed to do my MBBS, do my ophthalmology, and then I had to specialize becoming a pediatric ophthalmologist. So the journey that it takes is quite long, and at every stage it's not a given that you will kind of ramp over to the next stage, so there could be a gap. So unless you're very, very clear that this is something that is your life's calling, so to speak, deciding to become a doctor may not be the best thing for you to do. So there are many other ways that you can positively help people or impact lives. That being said, so once you become a doctor, we think that everything that we do is black and white. We see a patient, we figure out a set of symptoms, and then we go ahead and treat it. We think it's just black and white. But if you actually look at it, a doctor's life or your ability to practice medicine requires you to be an entrepreneur in every sense of the word. Now, what does an entrepreneur do? An entrepreneur looks at a problem that requires to be solved, that is a pain point for somebody, and he goes ahead and solves it. Very simply, that's what we as doctors do. We are trying to solve somebody's pain point or problem by simply giving them a better solution. Second, being an entrepreneur, you need to have a very clear purpose in terms of what you're doing. So again, as a doctor, you need to have a very clear purpose. Our purpose is to make lives better. Our purpose, becoming a doctor, is not necessarily to become rich or become famous. Those may become incidental happenings that could come your way. But the big kick we get is in our purpose of making lives much, much better. As a doctor, you need to be able to communicate very, very clearly. You have to communicate to your patients. You need them to understand what you have said, and they need to go back and respond to what you have communicated to them. That is something that every entrepreneur again has to do, because he needs to communicate to his stakeholders. As a founder, well, you have a brilliant idea, but unless you're able to communicate that down to your team, communicate that to your co-founders, communicate that to the set of angel investors or funders or those who are willing to, your friends and family are willing to invest behind your idea, unless you're able to very clearly articulate it and also reaffirm that they have understood what you're trying to say, you get stuck. So as a doctor, you have a heads up in being able to do this very often. The last bit, I think, as a doctor that we fail to realize is that when we are running a clinic or a hospital, you're looking at multiple facets. You probably give a name to your clinic, so there is some amount of branding that you're doing there. You need to stock up on medicines, you need to stock up on various consumables, you need to plan and schedule. So there is some amount of inventory management that you essentially are ending up doing. And end of the month, you need to survive. So there is a balance sheet in terms of what you've earned and what you've spent, and you need to kind of balance the books to do that. So there is some inherent financial planning that you do. You buy a number of equipment, you need to kind of recover that money. So there is a return on capital that you need to kind of figure in. So at multiple levels, despite us not calling ourselves as entrepreneurs, every doctor is playing the role of an entrepreneur in his or her business. So that is something I think we need to really understand, and we need to probably leverage as a skill set.
I totally love the way you explain. I mean, the first time I'm hearing really, the process of doctor and how they actually build these characteristics. And, this is very important, like what you said about the communication, taking the purposefulness and then taking the ownership, and how you actually go through the whole journey. What is that, difference between an entrepreneurship and the intrapreneurship? And how do one approach? I mean, is there any change in approach anybody has to even take into consideration?
The mindset is the same, whether you're an entrepreneur or an intrapreneur. Why do I say that? Essentially, you're looking to solve problems. So as an entrepreneur, you're trying to solve problems. Probably the idea is your own, and whatever profits that you accrue or the value or the valuation that you build becomes yours. As an entrepreneur, the difference just is that you may not be the boss calling the shots, but you're part of a larger team, part of a hierarchy, and you need to have that kind of a mindset. Problems are there everywhere. So we had this opportunity to interact with the founder of Mu Sigma as a part of one of the entrepreneurship summits that we hosted in Bangalore. And he said the key attribute of an entrepreneur is to be an opportunity miner. So you need to look for opportunities. So when you look at a problem, you either look at it as a problem or you look at it as a challenge that can result in an opportunity that either enhances your impact or it enhances your investment. So again, to go back to your question of corporate hospitals versus an entrepreneurial setup, a corporate hospital has stakeholders. So they have shareholders to whom they have to return value. It's similar to an entrepreneur having somebody who's funded him and that person is looking to exit and he expects some value accrued to him. An organization like us are very fortunate in that we have philanthropists who support us, who are looking at a return in terms of impact that we generate. So we are in a very happy spot as a social enterprise or a public charitable trust in that nobody's after our life saying, boss, you have to get triple X kind of a valuation, but they're looking at saying, okay, for every 100 rupees that we give you, can you accrue a value of 300 rupees in terms of impact on society? So being an entrepreneur or an entrepreneur is more about the mindset of looking for solutions among the problems that are there, looking for opportunities where we can impact, and looking for how you can actually create value. So my problem with an entrepreneur in the way they are defined today is most of them are after a valuation. So most people we interact with, be it as a part of various startup challenges that we do, be it interacting with various college students, most of them have this fixation of saying, oh, I want to have an exit. So you can't start off a business saying, look, I want to sell it off. Imagine if our parents and forefathers did that. We never would have the Tatas of the world. So we need to be clear that I create value. Along the journey, if there is somebody willing to put in their money to help me scale up faster, maybe yes. But am I creating value has to be the most critical thing. And that is more of a mindset that you wonderfully articulated as an introduction to this entire series. So we need to become solution providers, whether as your own boss or being a part of a larger team.
And I can't agree more. And I think you brought in a very, very important aspect here is about social enterprises. And I can see very clearly it's there in the DNA of Sankara Eye, as you managed to really do 2.3 million surgeries. I mean, what kind of thinking process goes into your, management conversations to really achieve such a number, which means it's literally kind of a very regular process. What kind of thinking process goes into your mind in the management conversations to make it as a social enterprises?
So I think, like I said, I've been very fortunate to be associated with this organization. Shankara today is one of the largest structured community eye care providers, but it has taken us about 40 years to get here. We were founded by Dr. R.V. Ramani and Dr. Radha Ramani. Our foundation was, I think, the stereotypical startup of sorts, 10 by 10 room, 100 square feet, Dr. Ramani, Dr. Radha with a passion to serve the community with 5 friends, each one of them contributing 1 rupee. So 5 rupees was the first savings deposit that they put in when they founded this movement in 1977. And this 10 by 10 room was a space that was given to them outside of a temple, saying that, why don't you run a free clinic every day? So that's where we started off. So every organization that you see today has had a journey. And at Shankara, again, we've been very fortunate to have been part of this journey. What helped us is the kind of clear vision that our founders had of being able to give the community, give back to the community, saying that doctors need to contribute back to society. That philosophy kind of stands by us even today. Our vision at Shankara is to eliminate needless blindness from our country through a very strong service-oriented team. To put it very simple, we want everybody to see the rainbow. So that has been our single kind of motivation to keep us on this journey path. We have seen many ups and downs as a part of the journey, but I think the positiveness that Dr. Ramani has been able to bring about and the team that he has been able to kind of stitch together, both in terms of our employees, our supporters, our well-wishers, and the ability to kind of let go what has been our secret mantra of growth. Let me just delve a little bit more in terms of saying letting go. So when you found an entity, you hold it very close to heart because you have a kind of a very fixed idea in terms of the purpose, in terms of how it has to be done and what all should be done step by step. I think the beauty of Shankara or the beauty of Dr. Ramani and Dr. Radha is that they've been very magnanimous. So early part, they realized saying that they both were general physicians. They said, we can't do it all. So they roped in people from various specialities to come and volunteer. So they stitched together a volunteer doctor base of almost about 60 to 70 doctors who contributed their time. So they brought in people from various diverse skill sets to become a part of the movement. Over a period of time, they realized that, okay, we were growing, we need to structure. So very quickly, they formalized this into a public charitable trust. Again, they brought together 5 or 6 leading visionaries, so to speak, in the city of Coimbatore, where the organization began, to kind of bring in a sense of governance and transparency to the entire program. So that was a second phase of our organization where we brought in some amount of structure to it. Third, in the early 80s or the late 80s, there were two large public health problems in India, leprosy and blindness. Everybody was going after leprosy. Dr. Ramani believed that blindness was an area that they could create an impact in. Again, both of them are not eye specialists, but they believed that they had built in that network and structure that they could impact. So they very quickly took on eye care as a thrust area. So they built in a focus. Once that focus was there, we started growing. At that point in time, we were doing a majority of the surgeries free of cost. So people would donate money, we would do surgeries. So very quickly they realized that this was not a way that an organization could thrive or sustain. So they brought in an element saying that, okay, if we are providing high quality care, there would be a set of people willing to pay for services. Why not use that positive revenue to sustain the charity? So then we built up this model where we said, okay, 20% of our patients could pay for services, and that positive revenue will help us sustain. So we kind of skewed the Pareto model where we said 80% of our surgeries we continue to do free of cost, and 20% who pay will help us kind of sustain. So then sustainability got built into this entire system. Once we became sustainable, there was a passion saying, can we scale? A large number of our donor base comes out of the US. So they kind of threw us a challenge saying that, why are you stuck with one hospital in Tamil Nadu? Why don't you scale up across the country? So Dr. Ramani threw them a challenge saying, raise $1 million. This was in 2002. Raise $1 million. And yes, I will support setting up a hospital. We'll build a hospital in Andhra Pradesh. Indians are probably the most phenomenally resourceful people. Within 1 year, they had raised $1 million. This was largely people of the Andhra diaspora. When I say Andhra, the United Andhra Pradesh then. And we were almost forced to set up a hospital in Guntur. So we very quickly had to build in a structure of SOPs that could help us kind of create a model that could be replicable. We then grew to 10 hospitals. We then realized that the governance structure we had was not good enough. And then we looked at other industries saying that how do they actually sustain? They have an executive board. So Dr. Ramani, about 8 to 10 years back, set up something called as a steering council. The steering council has people from various domains from corporate world who are passionate and aligned to the purpose of Shankara, who once in a quarter sit with us, help us strategize, as well as help us reflect in terms of our operational performance. So this kind of various changes that we managed to bring about has helped us thrive as an organization. And I do see a lot of analogy if you are a startup founder and wish to see your organization grow. Maybe at every stage of your organization, you need to look at these little elements as a part of your growth journey.
I was literally having goosebumps when you said, about the vision of everybody should see the rainbow, and the way that thinking process. Now I'm understanding how you could reach up to changing lives of 2.3 million people, having the right vision and not compromising on it, and making sure that governance is put up along with the growth, and it is evolving all the time, and also putting that focus with a concentrated approach on whether it is going towards the vision or not. So this is absolutely amazing. But here I'm getting one question, right? All the doctors who are coming out in the healthcare industry, what kind of opportunities they have in terms of startup, if they're really looking into the entrepreneurial journey for them? Is it only about setting up the clinic, or is the healthcare industry has any other opportunities in the startup zone?
So again, I go back to where I started off. It again starts off with your purpose. So there's this wonderful book called Ikigai. Again, we had the fortune of interacting with the authors as a part of our Young Indians book special interest group, where they talk about saying that what is Ikigai? Ikigai is essentially the reason why we get up every morning. And when you kind of look at it as a framework, it is about what you love, which kind of is a bit of your passion and your vision. It is what benefits society, which could be your vision and your vocation. What you can be actually paid for, which is your professional capability, and what it is that you are good at. So it's a kind of a merge of these four kind of circles. And the core of that, if all these is yes, then that is where you are. So again, for everybody who's passing out as a doctor, my first question to you is that something you're passionate about, or are you still living your parents' dream? So it starts off from that core of saying that, why did you become a doctor? Once you become a doctor, then the question comes saying that, do you want to have traits of entrepreneurship, or do you want to look at academics? So you could have two different paths. So not everybody does everything the same. So I would think that I'm a very average academic. There are certain things I'm much better at. So you need to identify what your strengths are and become part of maybe a larger network or a team. So quite often when we say, I want to become an entrepreneur, you think that you have to fight the battle or the entire battle on your own. So it is very, very critical for you to build that network or a team. And this network could be both a structured network or an unstructured network. You could become part of an organization, you could create an organization, or you could become a part of a network like us at Young Indians. There are many who have started up as a collaboration where they had an idea, they did not have the time or the bandwidth. Somebody else picked it up and they've now set up businesses. So there are multiple examples that we have across our organization. But to answer your question more directly, as a part of a medical curriculum, there is no formal training, so to speak, in terms of how do you run a practice or a business. That is changing now. So the new National Medical Commission has changed the curriculum to bring in elements of ethics, communication, and practice management as a part of the 5.5-year course that we run through. So over a period of a few generations, we will see that happen. But that's no reason or no excuse for you not to own up your skills. So I have been again fortunate to be able to formally be a part of certain academic programs where I realized that, okay, there are certain aspects that I was not very clear about or I was not self-confident about. So the first step is to kind of plug in those gaps in terms of training, where you formally understand frameworks, where you formally understand structure. Today you have multiple programs available online, not necessarily all of them are paid for. So the Swayam portal by the Government of India has multiple programs from IIMB, which can be a good start point for you. There are multiple other international agencies that bring in various programs. So recently we had an opportunity to travel to Labasna, that's the Lal Bahadur Shastri National Academy for Administration, where we learned certain nuances in terms of leadership. So you need to be open to the idea of gaining those skill sets. So that is the first start point. The second thing, when you want to start up today, what is changing is the India healthcare stack. So like the Indian fin stack that was built up on which the BHIM, the UPI, everything got built up. So today there is an Indian health stack that is being built. So that gives you an opportunity as an entrepreneur. So there is a sandbox available. So if you are a person from the medical field, you actually have a great ringside view of what are the opportunities that are there. So what are the pain points that you have as a doctor, as a healthcare provider? What are the pain points that you see patients have? And can you actually look at solutions that are there? So the opportunity that you have is phenomenal. So look at the Indian health stack, see how you can leverage that, build your network. You may not have all the answers. Check with your friends. Your school classmates are a brilliant resource for you to reach out to. Somebody may be able to plug in that gap that you have, and then see how you can build up an entrepreneurial solution. Startup challenges are today available. So today, as an organization at Shankara, we motivate people to look at innovations. Innovations need not necessarily result in an entrepreneurship or a sustainable business idea, but being innovative helps you start looking at solutions. So we have trained our staff in models of design thinking. We've trained our staff in terms of various innovation business model canvases, where again we look at the purpose being the core of whatever we are delivering. So those are things that can help you start looking at the problem very differently.
Anybody for that matter, be it in medical industry or any other industry, people should look at what is the problem they're attending and how they can actually use the innovation to find a solution so that it goes long and sustained. And this is definitely very important for the young doctors for sure. And I just want to ask, right, before we conclude this very important conversation, how this COVID has kind of changed the way that eye care has to be taken. Do you have any, advice as such for the audience?
So COVID is an evolving problem. So when COVID started off, almost all of us were like, for a lack of a better example, like pigeons. We had our eyes closed. We thought, oh, this is something happening in Wuhan. It's so far away, it's not going to impact us. So the coronavirus has been something that has been coming to us pretty much every year. So the corona is a category of viruses. So we thought, okay, this is going to be something like that, very marginal kind of a problem. But as it evolved, like I said, we were very fortunate at Shankara that we had the steering council who in February of last year told us, look, this is going to be a problem of a year plus. Please be aware, don't take it lightly. Start looking for how we're going to mitigate the risk. You need to actually be open. When I say you need to be open, again, being part of YI and CII helped me a lot because it gave us access to the way other industries were trying to kind of get back to work. So our first learnings came from the manufacturing industries in terms of what they were doing in keeping their businesses open. The second came as a part of my INSEAD cohort where every Saturday we were sitting at home getting bored, getting frustrated. We said, can we get people to start talking of what the future was? So we had this session that looked at future of customer, and we had this very dear friend of mine who's a CEO of a large consumer company, where he came up with this pearls of wisdom. He said, look, we've looked at customers, we've looked at behavior, and today there are certain very clear examples. So we see this Ramayana effect where the family has become very core. We see this Volvo effect where people are very, very clear in terms of looking at safety as being the most paramount thing. And we see something called as a lipstick effect. What the lipstick effect is, when you go to a shopping mall, you impulsively pick up stuff. So you will see stuff like that dropping in. So this kind of consumer insights gave us an idea saying, oh damn, this is very similar to what we are seeing in our own world. And we started tailoring solutions to that. So long story short, what COVID has taught us is safety is very, very critical. So please be safe. We've looked at multiple iterations in terms of how we keep ourselves safe, our family safe, our employees safe. I think protection is something very, very critical. At the same time, you cannot go into a panic mode. You cannot afford to shut down your brain and stop thinking logically. You need to get on with life. It's a trade-off between lives and livelihood, and I think that holds true for every human being on this planet. In terms specific to eye care, my request to all those of you who have systemic conditions that could affect your eye care is please do not neglect it. COVID is going to remain with us for a long time. While you stay safe, please get your eye care done. Today, scarily, we find many patients land up with us who have been diabetics, who have not been able to control their diabetes or hypertension for the past year and are ending up with multiple eye conditions. Again, COVID has resulted in multiple opportunities. If you're an entrepreneur, please see how you can plug that gap between the end consumer who's a patient and hospitals who are sitting here. So there are multiple such opportunities that have evolved. So look at it that way. Every time we get frustrated, I go back to this poem, which has been one of our favorite mantras of a founder. And I will take your permission, Rajesh, to kind of just share that. This actually is a poem that has probably been wrongly attributed to Ralph Waldo Emerson. But I think the lines have phenomenal meaning even today. And that is something that we drive a lot of sense of comfort in terms of what we do. So the poem goes like this. It says, to laugh often and much, to win the respect of intelligent people and the affection of children, to earn the appreciation of honest critics, and to endure the betrayal of false friends, to appreciate beauty, to find the best in others, to leave the world a bit better, whether by a healthy child, a garden patch, or a redeemed social condition, to know one life has breathed easier because you lived here, that is to have succeeded. So this is a poem which is a favorite of Dr. Ramani's, and very often we find him quoting this to us, and this kind of goes back to reflect, saying that every day when you go back home and you've taken these risks, and I'm not saying that only we doctors are taking risks during COVID. I think every one of you out there is risking your life. When you go back home and just before you hit the bed, if you reflect on this poem and you think that yes, one life has lived better, I think it's definitely worth it.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, this has made an impact instantly, while I'm listening itself. And thank you so much for sharing such a beautiful poem, right? And I just want to actually kind of ask you, right? I see, Young Indians is really a powerful platform. What doctors can actually expect to give or actually receive from this Young Indians platform? I know that you're there for a very long time.
By the definition of Young Indians, I'm probably not very young. So most of us doctors are horrible at making friends. We are introverts by and large by nature. So the first thing that you get is a bunch of wonderful, wonderful people that you can call your friends. The diversity of the organization in terms of professionals, entrepreneurs, people from corporate world phenomenally changes your perspective. The second thing that you get is an opportunity to learn. Over the years, I've had an opportunity to be a part of the G20 Young Entrepreneur Alliance. I've had an opportunity to walk into ISRO and see how a satellite is being built. More recently, like I said, I've had an opportunity to be at the institute that trains our IAS officers and other administrative staff. So this is an opportunity that you will never ever get in any other organization. And most of us, or every one of us being an Indian, has this kind of burning desire to see a better country. And by its vision of converging, co-creating, collaborating, leading and influencing a better India, allows you to take that extra step. So you can actually experiment without fear of failure in terms of impacting in projects like climate change, against child sexual abuse, road safety, organ donation. You can interact with students. You can motivate the youth to lead a life beyond what their curriculum teaches them. You can be entrepreneurial yourself. You can trigger entrepreneurship, get wonderful entrepreneurial ideas. So Vaya is an organization where the more you give, the more you get. And you get back in terms of your network. Like most people have told, your network is your net worth, and 3,000 plus people across 55 cities you can call a home. I've done that. I've missed flights. I've landed up at people's houses, stayed at their houses. I've had friends of mine who solved multitude of problems for us as an organization, been a wonderful support system for us. The ability to get perspectives, you're never ever stuck anywhere. And the more you give, the more you get back. That to me is what Vaya is.
Wow. Okay, this is really amazing. It's a lot more than a person can expect in their busy lives, especially once they get into this journey. And I can only say one thing, Kaushik. It has been really amazing conversing with you and understanding, one, as a healthcare industry, two, as a doctor, and three, as an individual. All three of that has been extraordinarily learning experience for me as well as for the audience. So I want to say a big thanks to you for being part of this. And I can only say that if at all, as an audience, if you have not yet subscribed or liked, make sure to subscribe and also share with every single person out there where this message can make an impact in their life. And otherwise, I will see you with another amazing leader from YI next week. But till then, me and Kaushik says thank you and bye-bye.
Thank you.